My name is Daniel Walker, and for 10 long years I believed I had built the kind of life every man dreams of. A modest home in Ohio, a steady job at a local hardware supply company, a wife I adored, and dreams that, though not extravagant, felt enough for me. I wasn't rich, but I was dependable, and for a long time I thought that was enough for her too. Her name was Emily. When I met her, she was vibrant, beautiful, and full of ambition. I fell in love with her laughter, the way she lit up a room, and how she used to say that money didn't matter. Only love did. We got married in a small church with our closest friends and family. I remember standing there at the altar looking into her eyes, believing with all my heart that I was the luckiest man alive. But love, as I would later learn, is not always enough. The cracks started to show slowly. At first it was little comments. Daniel, maybe we should move to a bigger house. Or, don't you think it's embarrassing that my friends all go on vacations and we can't? I would brush them off, thinking every couple has disagreements. But little by little her words cut deeper. I worked hard, God did I work hard. I took every shift I could, sometimes late into the night, sometimes on weekends. I wasn't lazy. But no matter what I brought home, it wasn't enough for Emily. She wanted dinners at fancy restaurants, trips to Miami, designer handbags, and a lifestyle I simply couldn't provide. I kept telling her, one day, Emily, one day we'll get there. But one day wasn't good enough for her. The moment that shattered everything came one summer evening. I had just gotten off a 10-hour shift. My hands were sore, my back was aching, but I was excited because I had picked up Emily's favorite takeout, Thai noodles with extra vegetables. I walked into the house expecting a smile, maybe even a thank you. Instead, I found her sitting at the kitchen table with her mother, Margaret. I'll never forget the look on her face, cold, distant, like she had already decided I wasn't her husband anymore. And then she said it. Mom, I can't do this anymore. I'm divorcing him. I can't live on his pathetic salary. I froze. My hands went numb, the bag of takeout nearly slipping from my grip. She didn't even bother to lower her voice. She said it as if I wasn't even in the room, as if I was already gone. Her mother looked at me, almost with pity, but not surprise. It was clear they had been talking about this for a long time. I wanted to scream, to demand how she could throw away 10 years of marriage because I didn't make enough money, but the words caught in my throat. I just stood there silent, listening as she tore my heart to pieces, and then I said the words that surprised even me. I agree. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because I was too tired to fight. Maybe because deep down, I knew she had stopped loving me a long time ago. Or maybe because a part of me wanted her to see what life without me would really look like. Emily's eyes widened. She wasn't expecting me to agree so easily. She wanted a fight, maybe even a desperate plea. But all she got was silence. That night I slept on the couch. The next morning, she was gone. She filed for divorce within the week. She didn't fight for the house, didn't fight for anything except money. And since I didn't have much, she didn't take much either. She just wanted out. I should have been broken. And for a while I cried in silence. I blamed myself. I wondered if I really was pathetic, if my salary made me less of a man, if I had failed as a husband. But then something happened. Something that changed my life forever. One evening, after the divorce was finalized, I was walking through downtown Columbus. The streets were alive with people, neon lights, and the smell of food trucks. I wandered into a little bookstore cafe, the kind of place Emily would have hated. And that's where I met her, Anna. Anna was nothing like Emily. She was warm, humble, and her smile felt like sunlight. She worked at the cafe serving coffee and pastries. I ordered a black coffee and we struck up a conversation. She didn't ask me what I did for a living. She didn't care how much money I made. She just listened. Really listened. For the first time in years, I felt seen. We started talking more, then dating. And little by little, I began to heal. But here's the twist. Remember when Emily left me because of my pathetic salary? Well, life has a funny way of turning the tables. Within 2 years, I got promoted at my company. Then another promotion. And then, thanks to a mentor who saw potential in me, I started my own contracting business. And it took off. I went from barely scraping by to making 6 figures a year. I bought a new truck, a nicer house, and even took Anna on the kind of vacations Emily used to beg me for. But here's the difference: Anna never asked for any of it. She loved me when I had nothing, and she loves me now that I have more. One day, I ran into Emily at the grocery store. She looked different, older, tired. The fire in her eyes was gone. She was with another man, but the way she looked at me, it was a mix of regret and bitterness. She asked me how I was doing. I smiled and told her the truth. I'm happier than I've ever been. And for the first time, I realized how right I had been the day I agreed to her divorce. Sometimes, the best thing you can say to someone who doesn't value you is, "I agree." After that run-in with Emily at the grocery store, I couldn't stop thinking. Not because I missed her, God no, but because of how strange life can be. I remembered that night she called me pathetic. That night she told her mother she couldn't live with me anymore. And I realized something important. Her leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me. But back then, when it all started, I didn't know that. Back then, I was a broken man. After she moved out, the house felt empty. I'd walk into the bedroom and see her side of the closet empty, the bed cold. I cooked dinner for one, washed a single plate, sat alone in the living room while the silence screamed louder than any argument we'd ever had. For weeks, I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Was it my fault for not working harder? Should I have taken out loans, worked 3 jobs, or sacrificed my health just to give her the lifestyle she craved? But every time I started blaming myself, I remembered the way she looked at me that night. Not with disappointment, not even with anger, but with disgust, like I was beneath her. That's when it hit me. It was never about money. It was about her. Emily had been raised differently than me. Her dad was a successful dentist in Cleveland, and she'd grown up with fancy cars, private schools, and vacations in Europe. I, on the other hand, was raised in a middle-class family in Dayton. My parents worked hard. My dad was a truck driver, my mom a nurse, and they taught me that love mattered more than money. Emily used to say she admired that about me. But over time, admiration turned to resentment. She didn't want to build with me. She wanted someone who already had it all, and when she realized I wasn't that man, she left. So I threw myself into work. Not for her, not even for revenge, but for me. To prove to myself that I wasn't pathetic, that I could achieve something, not because Emily demanded it, but because I wanted it. I worked overtime. I learned everything I could about the industry. I networked, I read books on business, I watched videos late into the night. I stopped wasting time feeling sorry for myself and started investing it into becoming better. And that's when opportunities started opening. My boss, Mr. Henderson, noticed my effort. He saw how I never complained, how I stayed late to finish jobs, how I treated customers with respect. One afternoon, he called me into his office. "Daniel," he said, "I've been watching you. You've got potential. More than you realize. How would you feel about taking on a supervisory role?" I was stunned. Me? The guy whose own wife thought he was pathetic? The guy who barely scraped by? I said yes, and that yes changed everything. Within a year, I was managing a team. Then came another promotion. And eventually, I realized I didn't just want to work for someone else, I wanted to build something of my own. That's when I started my own contracting business. It was scary. I invested every dollar I had. I worked 14-hour days, sometimes more. But this time, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like freedom. And right in the middle of this whirlwind was Anna. Anna, the woman from the cafe, was my anchor. She didn't care if I worked late nights. She didn't complain when I missed dinner. Instead, she'd pack me meals, leave me little notes in my truck, remind me to take breaks. She cheered me on, not because of the money, but because she believed in me. One night after an exhausting week, I came home to find that Anna had cooked my favorite meal, meatloaf with mashed potatoes and green beans, just like my mom used to make. I broke down in tears right there at the table. Not because of the food, but because for the first time in years, I felt loved for who I was, not for what I could provide. That's when I knew she was the one. We got married in a small courthouse ceremony, just us and a couple of close friends. No big show, no expensive decorations, no overpriced dress, just love, real love. Meanwhile, Emily's life didn't turn out the way she expected. Through mutual friends, I heard that the man she left me for had cheated on her. She jumped from relationship to relationship, always chasing someone who could give her the lifestyle she thought she deserved. But it never lasted. Because here's the thing. When someone leaves you because they think you're not enough, the best revenge isn't anger or hate. The best revenge is success. The best revenge is building a life so full, so happy, that you don't even need them anymore. And that's exactly what I did. Now, years later, I look back and I thank God for that painful night. Because if Emily hadn't told her mother she couldn't live on my pathetic salary, I might still be stuck in a marriage where I was never truly valued. Her rejection became my motivation. Her insult became the fuel that pushed me to grow. And when I hear people say money can't buy happiness, I believe them. Because happiness doesn't come from money. It comes from being with someone who loves you whether you have $1 or $1 million. Emily never understood that. But Anna did. And that's why Anna has my heart. So yes, when Emily said she wanted a divorce and I told her, I agree, it was the best decision of my life. After Anna and I got married, life wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that's something I never had with Emily. With Emily, it was always about appearances. She cared about what car we drove, what clothes we wore, where we vacationed, how others perceived us. It was exhausting. Like living in a never-ending competition I never signed up for. With Anna, none of that mattered. She didn't care if I wore the same old pair of boots every day. She didn't mind that we lived in a modest home while I built my business. She laughed at my corny jokes, sat with me on the porch drinking cheap beer, and somehow made even the simplest moments feel like magic. But let me be clear, it wasn't easy. Building my company tested me in ways I didn't think possible. There were nights I came home so exhausted I could barely keep my eyes open. Times when I thought I was in over my head. I'd get rejection after rejection from clients. Some months the bills scared me half to death. If Emily had still been in my life, she would have left all over again. She didn't have the patience for the struggle. But Anna? She rolled up her sleeves and fought with me. I'll never forget one night when I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a pile of unpaid invoices. My head was pounding, my chest tight with anxiety. I muttered, maybe I should just quit. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Anna put her hand over mine, looked me dead in the eye, and said, Daniel, you've survived worse. You're not quitting. You're building, and I'm with you, every step of the way. That was the night I knew I'd found the kind of partner every man dreams of. Together, we sacrificed. We skipped vacations, we drove used cars, we ate at home most nights. But little by little, things began to change. My business gained momentum. Word spread about the quality of our work. I hired a small crew, then expanded. Before I knew it, we were one of the most trusted contracting businesses in Central Ohio. And then came the real turning point. A wealthy property developer named Richard Whitman noticed my company's work on a housing project. He asked to meet me. At first, I thought it was just another small job. But Richard offered me a contract that was bigger than anything I'd ever imagined, an entire commercial complex. It was risky. It required resources I didn't even know if I had, but I said yes. And with Anna's support, I poured everything into it. For 6 months, I worked harder than I ever had in my life. And when it was done, Richard shook my hand and said, Daniel, you've got a future bigger than you realize. That single contract opened doors I never thought possible. Suddenly, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. And yet, through it all, Anna never changed. She didn't suddenly demand luxury or act like she was owed something. She was still the same woman who had been there when I had nothing. She stayed humble, grateful, and loyal. Which brings me back to Emily. One evening, about 3 years after the divorce, I was invited to a charity fundraiser in downtown Columbus. Richard insisted I attend, said it would be good for networking. I almost didn't go because events like that weren't really my scene. But Anna encouraged me, saying, Go, Daniel. You've earned your place in those rooms. So, I went. The ballroom was filled with men in tailored suits and women in sparkling gowns. I felt out of place at first, but as I mingled and people recognized me for my company's work, I realized I belonged there. I had worked for this. I deserved it. And then across the room, I saw her. Emily. She was standing near the bar, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my first car. But something about her was different. The way she held her glass, the forced smile, the exhaustion in her eyes. She looked desperate. Our eyes met. She froze for a second, then quickly walked over. "Daniel," she said, her voice laced with surprise. "Wow, it's been a long time." I nodded politely. "It has." She glanced around, probably noticing the people I was speaking with, the way others greeted me with respect. For the first time, she looked unsure of herself. "So, how have you been?" she asked. I smiled. "Better than ever." There was an awkward pause before she leaned in and said softly, "I didn't realize you were doing so well. I mean, you look great. And your business, I've heard about it. Congratulations." Her words felt strange. This was the same woman who once called me pathetic. The same woman who threw me away because I wasn't rich enough. Now she was complimenting me, and then she said something that nearly made me laugh. "You know, sometimes I wonder if maybe we gave up too soon. If things could have been different." Different. That's what she said. As if it was just a misunderstanding. As if she hadn't humiliated me in front of her mother, calling my salary pathetic. I took a sip of my drink, looked her in the eyes, and said, "No, Emily, things happened exactly the way they were supposed to." She opened her mouth to respond, but I excused myself and walked away. Later that night, I went home to Anna. She was curled up on the couch in her pajamas, waiting for me with a bowl of popcorn. I sat down next to her, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." She smiled sleepily and said, "I know." And I realized in that moment that I had everything I could ever need. Emily was just a chapter in my life. A painful chapter, yes, but one that led me exactly where I was meant to be. Because sometimes, losing what you thought you wanted is the only way to find what you truly deserve. A few months after that fundraiser, life settled back into its steady rhythm. My business continued to grow. Anna and I grew closer than ever. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. But life has a way of testing you, even when you think the storm has passed. It was a Saturday morning when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. On the other end was a voice I hadn't heard in years. "Daniel." "It's me, Emily." For a moment, I didn't say anything. I almost hung up, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want, Emily?" I asked flatly. She sighed. "Can we meet?" "Just to talk. Please, it's important." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a small diner on the edge of town. I walked in and saw her sitting at a booth, staring into her coffee like it held all the answers she'd been searching for. When she looked up at me, I barely recognized her. The glamorous Emily I once knew was gone. She looked tired, worn down, as if life had taken everything from her. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. I sat across from her. "What is it you want?" She hesitated before speaking. "Daniel, I made a mistake. A huge mistake. I thought leaving you would give me the life I wanted, but instead, I lost everything. The men I dated after you, they didn't care about me. They used me. And when things got hard, they left. You were the only man who ever truly loved me." I stared at her, searching for some sign of sincerity. And I could see it. She was telling the truth. She really did regret leaving. But here's the thing about regret. It doesn't erase the past. I took a deep breath. "Emily, I don't hate you. I used to. I used to replay that night over and over in my head, the night you told your mother you were divorcing me because of my salary. I used to think I wasn't enough. But now I see it differently. You did me a favor. You leaving forced me to grow. And because of that, I found Anna, the woman who loves me for me, the woman who stood by me when I had nothing. And I'll never trade that for anything." Her eyes filled with tears. "So that's it? There's no chance? No way to fix what we had?" I shook my head. "What we had wasn't real, Emily. It was built on conditions, on what I could give you. Real love doesn't keep score. Real love doesn't run when things get hard. You didn't love me. You loved the idea of what I could be if I made more money. And when I didn't live up to that fantasy, you walked away. There's no fixing that." She reached across the table, her hand trembling. Daniel, please! I pulled back. No, Emily, it's too late. You chose this. And I chose to move on. The silence between us was heavy. Finally, she nodded, wiped her eyes, and whispered, I hope she makes you happy. She does, I said firmly. More than you'll ever know. And with that, I stood up, paid for my coffee, and walked out of that diner feeling lighter than I had in years. When I got home, Anna was in the backyard, tending to the little garden she loved so much. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, kissed her cheek, and whispered, I ran into Emily today. She turned, eyebrows raised. Oh yeah, how'd that go? I smiled. It just reminded me how lucky I am to have you. Anna laughed, brushing dirt from her hands. Well, as long as you know it. We went inside, cooked dinner together, and spent the evening watching movies on the couch. Nothing extravagant, nothing flashy, just us. And I realized that was all I ever needed. Looking back now, I don't see myself as the man Emily once called pathetic. I see myself as a man who refused to give up, who turned heartbreak into fuel, who found love where it truly mattered. And if I could go back to that night, standing in the kitchen holding that bag of takeout while Emily told her mother she was divorcing me, I'd still say the same words. I agree. Because agreeing to let her go was the beginning of everything. It was the beginning of my growth, the beginning of my success, and most importantly, the beginning of a love story that was real. So, to anyone listening who feels like they're not enough because someone told them so, remember this. Your worth is not defined by your paycheck or your house or your car. The right person will see your value long before the world does. Emily never saw it, but Anna did. And that's why Anna is still here, laughing with me, building a life with me, and proving every single day that real love is unconditional. So yes, she told her mother, I'm divorcing him. I can't live on his pathetic salary. And I agreed to it all, and it was the best decision I ever made.